Hello and welcome to G Fun Facts Online, the show that dives deep into the science and stories shaping our future. For decades, the familiar hum of a jet engine has been the soundtrack to our connected world. It's the sound of crossing oceans, visiting family, and doing business on a global scale. A flight from New York to London takes about 7 hours, and we've come to accept that as impressively fast. But what if that same journey could be done in 90 minutes? What if you could have breakfast in Paris and a late lunch in Sydney on the same day? This isn't science fiction anymore. This is the promise of hypersonic flight, and it's about to redefine not just travel, but the world itself. Today we're talking about the thunderous roar that's set to shatter the status quo. We're exploring the global race to fly faster than 5 times the speed of sound. A race with profound implications for how we travel, trade, and even think about security. So buckle up, because we're about to break the sound barrier, and then some. The quest to fly at what we call hypersonic speed, that's anything over Mach 5 or 5 times the speed of sound, isn't actually new. The ambition dates back to the Cold War. In 1949, a 2-stage rocket called the Bumper reached a mind-boggling Mach 6.7. It burned up on re-entry, but it proved one thing: these speeds were possible. Much of the early research was driven by the challenge of getting spacecraft and missiles back to Earth without them turning into fireballs. This led to a counterintuitive but genius discovery. You'd think a sharp, pointy nose would be best for slicing through the air. But researchers at NACA, the precursor to NASA, figured out that a blunt nose was actually better. It creates a shock wave that stands off from the vehicle, pushing the most intense heat away from the surface. This blunt body theory was revolutionary and is still used in spacecraft design today. Then came the legendary X-15, a rocket-powered plane that, back in the 1960s, was the first winged aircraft to hit hypersonic speeds. Test pilots flew this thing to the very edge of space, gathering priceless data. But the real game changer for sustained flight came with the idea of the scramjet engine. And that brings us to the core of the hypersonic challenge, the science itself. Flying at Mach 5 isn't just about going faster. The world of physics gets very weird up there. The biggest monster you have to fight is heat. As a vehicle smashes through the air at thousands of miles per hour, the air molecules can't get out of the way. They compress violently, creating a shock wave of incredible pressure and temperature. The surface of a hypersonic vehicle can reach thousands of degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt steel. The air itself can get so hot it becomes an ionized plasma, which can block communications. So how do you build something that can survive that? You need a revolution in materials. We're talking about exotic new alloys, super strong ceramic composites, and even materials designed to burn away in a controlled manner, carrying heat with them. The shape of the vehicle is also completely different. Hypersonic planes are often designed to be wave riders, with sharp leading edges and flat undersides that are literally designed to ride on their own shockwave to generate lift. And then there's the engine. A normal jet engine with all its spinning fans and turbines would be torn apart by the forces at these speeds. This is where the scramjet comes in. A scramjet, which stands for Supersonic Combustion Ramjet, is a marvel of engineering simplicity. It has virtually no moving parts. It's essentially a specially shaped tube. The vehicle's incredible speed forces air into the front of the engine at supersonic speeds, compressing it. Fuel is then injected into this violent, supersonic airflow and ignited. The whole combustion process happens in a few milliseconds. The resulting exhaust blasts out the back, generating immense thrust. The catch? A scramjet can only ignite at hypersonic speeds. It can't get you off the ground. You need another engine, like a rocket or a traditional jet, to get the vehicle fast enough for the scramjet to take over. This is the idea behind combined cycle engines, which are one of the holy grails of hypersonic research. This incredible, almost alien technology has as you might expect, kicked off a fierce global competition. And this race is being fought on two fronts: the military and the commercial. In the military arena, hypersonic weapons are seen as an absolute game changer. They come in two main flavors: hypersonic glide vehicles, or HGVs, which are launched on a rocket and then glide to their target, and hypersonic cruise missiles, which are powered by scramjets. What makes them so terrifying is their combination of speed, maneuverability, and a flight path that's too high for some air defenses and too low for missile defense systems. They are incredibly difficult to track and almost impossible to intercept with current technology. The United States, China, and Russia are the main players in this new arms race. The US is spending billions on programs for the Army, Navy, and Air Force. China is considered a leader in the field and has already deployed a missile called the DF-17, a hypersonic glide vehicle. Russia claims to have fielded several systems, including the Kinzhal missile, which has reportedly been used in the conflict in Ukraine. This military competition is a major driver of funding and research. But there's a much more hopeful side to this story. A parallel race is unfolding in the private sector, with ambitious startups dreaming of turning this technology towards civilian travel. Companies like Hermeus in Atlanta are developing a 20-passenger aircraft called the Halcyon, with the goal of flying from New York to London in 90 minutes. Venus Aerospace in Texas is working on a Mach 9 vehicle powered by a radical new engine design. And Swiss company Destinus is developing a hydrogen-powered hypersonic aircraft that could fly from London to Sydney in just 4 hours. These companies are betting that they can solve the immense challenges and create a new paradigm for global travel. This brings us to the core dilemma of hypersonic flight. It is a classic dual-use technology. It's a double-edged sword. On one side, you have the dream of a hyper-connected planet. Business, tourism, and even diplomacy could be transformed. High-speed cargo delivery could revolutionize global logistics, getting life-saving medicine or critical parts anywhere in the world in hours instead of days. Hypersonic spaceplanes could also make access to space cheaper and more routine, kicking off a new golden age of exploration. But the other edge of that sword is sharp and dangerous. The military reality is a new, destabilizing arms race. Because these weapons are so hard to stop, they could be seen as a perfect first-strike weapon, increasing the risk of miscalculation and escalation in a global crisis. It's also incredibly difficult to distinguish between civilian and military hypersonic research, which makes arms control agreements nearly impossible to verify. So as we push forward, we face this constant tension between the civilian dream and the military reality. The hurdles to making any of this a reality are still immense. Beyond the physics of heat and propulsion, there is the staggering cost. A single flight test can cost hundreds of millions of dollars. We need to develop entirely new air traffic control systems to manage vehicles moving at these speeds. And we need to build new infrastructure, perhaps spaceports instead of airports, to handle them. And we haven't even fully grappled with the environmental impact. What do high-altitude emissions from a fleet of hypersonic jets do to the ozone layer or the climate? These are huge questions that still need answers. The future of flight is taking shape right now, in labs and on test ranges around the world. The hypersonic age is coming. It promises a world transformed, a world where distance is no longer a barrier. It will shrink our planet, accelerate our economies, and connect us in ways we can barely imagine. But it also presents us with profound challenges and dangers. How we choose to wield this incredible new power, whether we use it to bring the world closer together or to create more effective ways to tear it apart, will be one of the defining questions of the 21st century. The race is on, and the world that emerges on the other side will be a very different place indeed. Thanks for tuning in to Fun Facts Online. We'll catch you on the next one.